The Grand Chamber of Unity 7 stretched before Ambassador Elena Vasquez like a cathedral of chrome and starlight. 47 species had gathered here, representatives from across the galaxy, each one believing they held wisdom humanity could never match. Elena walked down the center aisle, her boots clicking against the polished floor, feeling the weight of countless alien eyes upon her. She had been doing this for 5 years now. 5 years of polite smiles and careful words. 5 years of being treated like a child who needed guidance from her elders. Today felt different. Today felt like an ending. The Zalthari High Chancellor rose from his seat at the center of the semicircular table. His silver robes shimmered in the artificial light, and his 3 eyes fixed on Elena with what she had learned to recognize as contempt disguised as concern. Next to him sat war leader Kresh of the Karathi Empire, his scaled face expressionless, massive arms crossed over his armored chest. Elena took her place at the small podium reserved for humanity. Behind her stood Admiral James Chen, his uniform crisp and professional, and Dr. Sarah Okonkwo, who had spent 20 years studying alien cultures. They were her team, her support, her witnesses to whatever happened next. The High Chancellor began to speak. His voice carried across the chamber through translators that turned his native tongue into English, Mandarin, Spanish, and 100 other languages. Elena listened as he outlined what he called peace terms. What he really meant was surrender. Humanity would give up control of 12 outer colonies. Humanity would reduce its fleet to 10% of current strength. Humanity would pay annual tributes to the Council for protection. Protection from what? Elena wanted to ask, but she stayed quiet. She knew the answer. Protection from themselves. The truth was simple and brutal. 50 years ago, humanity had joined the Galactic Council as the newest member, eager and grateful to be part of something bigger. 50 years was nothing to species that counted their histories in millennia. To them, humans were infants barely worthy of notice. But those 50 years had changed everything. While the ancient races had grown comfortable with their technology, content with what they had achieved over thousands of years, humanity had pushed forward with the desperate energy of a species that knew it was behind. Human scientists worked around the clock. Human engineers broke rules the older races did not even know existed. Human shipyards built vessels that made council admirals nervous. That was what this meeting was really about. Not peace, control, fear. The council had realized too late that humanity was catching up and they did not like it. Elena raised her hand. The High Chancellor paused, his middle eye swiveling to focus on her. He made a gesture that meant she could speak, though his body language suggested he expected her to ask simple questions, to need clarification like a student struggling with a difficult lesson. Instead, Elena said, "I request a recess, 1 hour to discuss these terms with my delegation." The High Chancellor looked surprised but nodded. "Of course, take your time. Perhaps you need help understanding certain complex points." Elena smiled politely and walked out. Admiral Chen and Dr. Okonkwo followed her to a small conference room adjacent to the main chamber. The moment the door sealed behind them, Elena slammed her hand on the table. "They want us to surrender everything we have built," she said. "Every colony we have established. Every ship we have constructed. Our independence," Admiral Chen nodded grimly. "I have been expecting something like this for 2 years. That is why I started building contingency plans. Our military is ready for this scenario." Dr. Okonkwo looked troubled. "I have studied 43 species in detail. Most of them are good people, but their leaders, the ones who have held power for centuries, they see us as a threat, not because we are aggressive, because we are capable. They have grown lazy and we remind them of what they used to be." Elena looked at both of them. "So what do we do? If we accept these terms, humanity becomes a servant state. If we refuse, they will try to force us." Admiral Chen leaned forward. "We have options. Our fleet is stronger than they know. Our defensive platforms are already in place around every human system. They think we are unprepared. They are wrong. Then we refuse," Elena said. Her voice was steady now, certain. "We walk away from this council. We chart our own path." Dr. Okonkwo looked worried. "That is a dangerous choice." "We will make enemies. We already have enemies," Elena replied. "The only question is whether we face them on our knees or on our feet. I know which I prefer." The hour passed quickly. When they returned to the main chamber, Elena noticed that several of the smaller species representatives looked sympathetic. The Malari delegate had tears in her large eyes. The Trendo ambassador made a small gesture of respect with his hand. They knew what was happening. They had lived under council control for far longer than humanity. Elena stood at her podium and looked directly at the High Chancellor. She spoke clearly, so that every translator could capture her words, so that every species could hear. The United Human Systems has carefully considered the terms presented today. We reject them. These are not terms of peace. They are demands for subjugation. Humanity did not travel to the stars only to bow before those who refused to treat us as equals. The chamber erupted. Representatives shouted at each other. War Leader Kresh stood, his hand moving toward his weapon before he remembered where he was. The High Chancellor's face turned a deep purple color that Elena's studies told her meant rage. She continued, her voice cutting through the noise. Effective immediately, humanity withdraws from the Galactic Council. We withdraw all our ambassadors. We close all diplomatic channels under Council authority. We will defend our territory and our people. We will not fire the first shot, but we will defend ourselves against any aggression. The choice of what happens next is yours, not ours. Elena picked up her datapad and turned toward the exit. Admiral Chen and Dr. Okonkwo fell in behind her. As they walked down the aisle, Elena noticed that several species representatives stood in respect. Others sat frozen in shock. The High Chancellor was shouting orders, but his words seemed far away now. The door closed behind them with a soft hiss. In the corridor outside, Admiral Chen allowed himself a small smile. That went better than expected. Dr. Okonkwo shook her head. It went exactly as expected. Now comes the hard part. Elena looked back at the sealed door one last time. 50 years of diplomacy had ended in a single hour. She felt lighter somehow, as if a weight she had been carrying was finally gone. Humanity was alone now, truly alone, facing a galaxy that might become hostile at any moment. But they were alone on their own terms. That had to count for something. As they walked toward their ship, Elena allowed herself one thought. We gave them every chance to treat us fairly. What happens next is on them. Behind them in the council chamber, the real chaos was just beginning. News of humanity's withdrawal spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Within hours, every council species knew what had happened. Within days, the entire civilized galaxy was talking about nothing else. The humans had said no. The humans had walked away. In the council chamber, chaos continued for 3 full days. Representatives argued, blamed, and accused. Some said the terms had been too harsh. Others said humanity should have been forced to accept them. The Malari delegate openly wept and called the council corrupt. The Trendo ambassador spoke for 2 hours about justice and equality, before being silenced by the High Chancellor. War Leader Kresh of the Karathi stood and demanded immediate military action. We should send our fleets now, he said, his voice like grinding stone. Show them the price of defiance. But other voices urged caution. Intelligence reports were coming in, and they were troubling. Human shipyards had been building far more vessels than anyone had realized. New defensive platforms surrounded every human world. The technology appeared to be years ahead of council estimates. The High Chancellor listened to all of this with growing frustration. How had they missed the signs? How had the humans developed so quickly? He called for an investigation, but everyone already knew the answer. The council had been arrogant. They had assumed humanity would always be weak, always be behind, always be grateful for whatever scraps the older races threw them. Meanwhile, humanity acted with speed and purpose that surprised even their harshest critics. Within 24 hours of leaving Unity 7, every human ambassador had been recalled from council space. Every diplomatic office had been closed. Every communication channel under council authority had been shut down. Admiral Chen sat in the war room on Earth, watching holographic displays show the positions of human forces across known space. Captain Marcus Rodriguez appeared on one screen, standing on the bridge of his ship, the UHSF Defiant. The captain's dark eyes were calm but alert. Status report, Chen ordered. All defensive platforms are active and armed, Rodriguez replied. Every human system has full protection. Our patrol routes have been adjusted to cover weak points. The fleet is ready, sir. Chen nodded. Good. They will test us. The only question is when and where. In another part of Earth's command complex, Ambassador Vasquez was preparing for a different kind of battle. Dr. Okonkwo stood beside her as Elena reviewed the speech she was about to give. It would be broadcast across the entire galaxy, translated into every known language, sent to every world that could receive it. "Are you sure about this?" Okonkwo asked quietly. Elena looked at her friend. "No, but I am sure about doing nothing. We need to tell our side of the story before the Council tells theirs." The broadcast began. Elena stood before the cameras, looking directly into the lens, knowing that billions of beings across countless worlds would see this message. "People of the galaxy," she began. "I am Ambassador Elena Vasquez of the United Human Systems. Today I speak to you not as a representative of the Galactic Council, but as a free citizen of a free people. Humanity has withdrawn from the Council because we were offered a choice between freedom and subjugation. We chose freedom. We came to the stars with hope. We joined the Council with gratitude. For 50 years we have been loyal members, contributing our resources, sharing our discoveries, and following the rules. But loyalty must go both ways. Respect must be mutual. We asked only to be treated as equals. Instead, we were told to surrender our colonies, reduce our defenses, and pay tribute for the privilege of existing. We refused. We will continue to refuse. Humanity will defend itself against any aggression. We will protect our people and our worlds, but we will not fire the first shot. We will not start a war. The choice of peace or conflict rests with the Council, not with us. We hope they choose peace. We are prepared if they choose otherwise. To those species and individuals who have reached out to us in friendship, we say thank you. To those who believe in justice and equality, we say you are not alone. To those who would threaten us, we say you have been warned. The age of humanity bowing to others is over. We stand on our own now. We walk our own path. Come with us if you will. Stand against us if you must. But understand this, we will not go back." The broadcast ended. Within minutes, reactions began flooding in from across the galaxy. Some praised humanity's courage. Others called them fools and traitors. But many, especially among the younger species and the oppressed population, saw something different. They saw hope. Secret messages started arriving at human outposts. Small species who had long chafed under Council control wanted to open talks. They wanted to know if humanity truly meant what Elena had said. They wanted to know if there was an alternative to the Council's rule. This terrified the Council leadership even more than humanity's military strength. If other species started breaking away, if more races decided they wanted equality instead of hierarchy, the entire system would collapse. The Council had maintained control for thousands of years through a careful balance of benefits and threats. Humanity was disrupting that balance. The High Chancellor convened an emergency session. The chamber was tense, divided, angry. War Leader Kresh demanded action. The Malari representative begged for restraint. Smaller species stayed quiet, afraid to speak up but clearly worried about what came next. Finally, the High Chancellor made a decision that would change everything. The Council would give humanity an ultimatum, 30 days to return to negotiations and accept the original terms. If they refused, the Council would impose sanctions, blockade human space, and if necessary, use military force to bring them back in line. It was meant to be a show of strength. Instead, it was a show of weakness. By setting a deadline, the Council revealed their fear. By threatening force, they revealed their desperation. The message was clear to anyone paying attention. The Council was scared of humanity. The 30 days passed in a flurry of activity. Human diplomats held secret meetings with representatives from dozens of species. Trade agreements were discussed. Defense pacts were proposed. A new order was being built, one that did not require Council approval. Admiral Chen used the time to position his forces carefully. Captain Rodriguez and the Defiant moved to the new Bethlehem system, the outermost human colony. If the Council attacked, that was where they would strike first. Rodriguez's crew prepared for battle, checking weapons, running drills, saying prayers, or making jokes depending on their natures. Ambassador Vasquez barely slept during those 30 days. She worked around the clock, building connections, gathering allies, preparing for whatever came next. Dr. Okonkwo compiled intelligence on Council military capabilities. They needed to know exactly what they were facing. On the 30th day, the deadline arrived. Humanity gave its answer through silence. No representatives returned to Unity 7. No ambassadors requested to speak with the High Chancellor. No messages were sent to the Council asking for mercy or compromise. The silence said everything that needed to be said. Humanity would not surrender. Humanity would not bow. Humanity would not back down. War leader Kresh smiled when he heard the news. Finally, he would be allowed to show these upstart humans their place. He gathered his fleet, the pride of the Karathi Empire, and prepared to jump into human space. His orders were clear: destroy enough ships to break their will, occupy New Bethlehem, and force humanity to surrender. The Karathi fleet jumped into the New Bethlehem system with weapons hot and shields raised. Kresh expected to find a small colony, poorly defended, ripe for conquest. What he found instead made his blood run cold. The human fleet was waiting. Not just waiting. Surrounding them, twice as many ships as intelligence had reported. New designs, sleek and deadly, and behind them, massive defensive platforms bristling with weapons that could punch through Karathi armor like paper. Admiral Chen's voice came over open communications, transmitted on every frequency so there could be no mistaking the message. Karathi fleet, you have entered United Human Systems territory without permission and with weapons armed. This is an act of war. You have one opportunity to leave peacefully. If you fire, we will respond. If you advance, we will respond. The choice is yours. You are warned. War leader Kresh stared at the tactical display with growing disbelief. His fleet of 80 warships, the finest the Karathi Empire could field, was surrounded by over 150 human vessels. Every sensor showed the same impossible truth. The humans had been ready. Not just ready, prepared. His second-in-command leaned close. Sir, our shields cannot withstand those defensive platforms, and their ships are moving in patterns our computers say are impossible at those speeds. Kresh growled low in his throat. The High Chancellor had promised him an easy victory. Intelligence had said the humans were unprepared. Every report had indicated that humanity would crumble under pressure. All of it had been wrong, but retreat was unthinkable. The Karathi did not flee. They did not show weakness. They conquered or they died trying. That was the way it had been for 1,000 years. Kresh would not be the first war leader to run from a battle. He opened a channel to the human fleet. Your threats do not frighten us. We serve the will of the Council. Stand down or be destroyed. On the bridge of the Defiant, Captain Rodriguez shook his head. Admiral Chen's voice came through his earpiece. He has made his choice. Show them what we can do, but try to minimize casualties. These are soldiers following orders, not monsters. Rodriguez gave the order he had hoped he would never have to give. All ships, defensive formation Alpha 7. Target weapons and engines only. Make them unable to fight, not unable to live. Fire when ready. The human fleet moved as one. A choreographed dance of vessels that seemed to flow around the Karathi formation like water around stones. Their speed was incredible. Their precision was perfect. And when Kresh finally gave the order to open fire, the humans were already 3 steps ahead. Karathi plasma bolts fired toward human ships. Point defense systems intercepted them with calm efficiency. Missiles launched from Karathi cruisers were destroyed before they could arm their warheads. Energy beams that should have torn through hulls splashed harmlessly against shielding that bent the laws of physics in ways Karathi scientists could not understand. Then the humans returned fire. Not with the massive broadsides Kresh expected, but with surgical precision. Railgun rounds moving at a fraction of light speed punched through Karathi shields and disabled weapon batteries. Focused energy beams cut through engine housings, leaving ships drifting but intact. Electronic warfare packages shut down targeting computers while leaving life support untouched. In less than an hour, the battle was over. Not a single Karathi ship had been destroyed. Not one crew member had died. But every vessel in the fleet was crippled, unable to fight, unable to jump to safety, barely able to maintain basic systems. They floated in space like wounded animals, helpless and humiliated. Admiral Chen opened a final communication to Kresh. War leader, your ships are disabled, but your crews are alive. We will not fire on defenseless vessels. Medical ships are standing by to assist with any injuries. You have 24 hours to arrange for recovery vessels to jump in and retrieve your fleet. If Council ships enter this system with weapons armed, we will defend ourselves. If they come in peace to help you, we will not interfere. Tell your leaders what happened here today. Tell them that humanity tried every way to avoid this. Tell them that what comes next is their choice, not ours. The channel closed. Kresh sat in his command chair, surrounded by sparking consoles and the groans of his wounded ship. He had led fleets to victory on a dozen worlds. He had conquered entire systems. And today, a species barely 50 years into space travel had defeated him without even trying hard. The news spread faster than Kresh's fleet could limp home. The mighty Karathi, the warriors who had never lost a battle, had been utterly defeated by humans. Not destroyed, worse, disarmed and sent home with a warning. The Galactic Council erupted into chaos once again. This time the factions were clear. On one side stood the Old Guard, the species who had held power for millennia and refused to accept that things were changing. Led by the High Chancellor and supported by war leader Kresh despite his defeat, they demanded escalation. They wanted to gather all council forces and crush humanity once and for all. On the other side stood a growing coalition of voices calling for peace. The Malari openly supported humanity now, no longer afraid to speak up. The Trendo, ancient and wise, argued that humanity had shown remarkable restraint. They could have destroyed the Karathi fleet. Instead, they had shown mercy. What did that say about their true nature? Smaller species began to break ranks entirely. 3 minor races announced they were opening independent trade negotiations with humanity. 5 others sent secret delegations to human space. The Council's authority was crumbling, not through military defeat, but through the simple act of others choosing a different path. Ambassador Vasquez found herself busier than ever. Her office on Earth was filled with alien diplomats from dawn until long after midnight. Dr. Okonkwo helped translate not just languages but cultures, explaining what different species valued, what they feared, what they hoped for. One visitor stood out from the rest. She was young for her species, barely into her 2nd century. Her name was Shalara, and she was a junior ambassador from the Malari people. She arrived without appointment, without security, and with tears in her large, dark eyes. Elena saw her immediately, sensing that something important was happening. Shalara sat across from Elena's desk and spoke in a voice that shook with emotion. My people have lived under council rule for 3,000 years. We are artists and philosophers. We have contributed beautiful things to the galaxy, and in return we are told where we can live, what we can build, who we can trade with. The High Chancellor speaks of order and stability, but what he means is control. What he means is that some species matter more than others. Elena listened carefully. I understand. But what do you want from humanity? We can offer you trade agreements, defensive pacts, but we cannot fight your battles for you. Shalara leaned forward. I am not here to ask you to fight for us. I am here to warn you. The Zalthari are assembling a massive armada, 10 times the size of the Karathi fleet. They will not make the same mistakes. They will not hold back. And they will not just target humans. They will attack every species that has spoken in your favor. Every world that opened talks with you. Every voice that questioned their authority. The room went quiet. Elena felt ice in her stomach. 10 times the Karathi fleet. That was over 800 warships. Could humanity stand against that? Could anyone, when? Elena asked quietly. 60 days. They are gathering ships from across council space. They are calling in every favor, every alliance, every debt. The High Chancellor has made this personal now. He sees humanity as an existential threat to the Council's authority. And he is right. Shalara stood and placed a small data device on Elena's desk. That contains everything I could gather. Fleet compositions, command structures, staging areas. I am betraying my government by giving you this. I am probably betraying my entire species. But I cannot stand by and watch while the Council crushes everyone who dares to hope for something better. Elena stood as well and took Shalara's hands in her own. You are not betraying your people. You are trying to save them. Come with me. We need to meet Admiral Chen. An hour later, Chen, Vasquez, Okonkwo, and Shalara sat around a table in Earth's command center. Chen reviewed the data Shalara had provided, his face growing grimmer with each passing minute. This is comprehensive. This is detailed. And this is terrifying. Even with our advantages, fighting this many ships will cost us heavily. We might win. We might even win decisively. But we will lose people. Lots of people. Can we evacuate? Okonkwo asked. Pull everyone back to Earth and fortify? Chen shook his head. That would only delay the inevitable. They would gather more forces and attack again. And it would show weakness. Every species watching this would know we ran. It would undo everything we have accomplished. Shalara spoke up quietly. There is another option. Do not wait for them to come to you. Take the fight to them. Elena looked at her sharply. You mean a first strike? We said we would not fire the first shot. The Karathi fired first, Shalara replied. That line has already been crossed. But I do not mean a military strike. I mean something else. The Council's power does not come from their ships. It comes from the belief that they are legitimate, that they speak for everyone, that their authority is absolute. Break that belief and their armada becomes meaningless. Dr. Okonkwo's eyes lit up. You mean expose them? Show the galaxy what they really are? Shalara nodded. I have been gathering evidence for years. Financial records, secret agreements, orders to suppress peaceful protests. Messages showing that council leaders deliberately start conflicts to maintain control. If this information reached every world in the galaxy, if everyone could see the truth, the council would lose its legitimacy overnight. Admiral Chen leaned back in his chair. That might work, but we would still need to be ready for their fleet. They would attack anyway, perhaps even more desperately if they felt their power slipping. Elena looked at each of them in turn. Then we do both. We prepare for the battle, and we prepare to win the war for hearts and minds. Shalara, can you get us everything you have? The young Malari smiled for the first time since entering the room. It is already done. I brought everything with me. I came here to help you save the galaxy. Let us get to where the next 60 days became a race against time. On one side, the Zalthari Armada gathered strength, pulling in ships from every corner of Council space. On the other, humanity prepared for a battle unlike anything they had faced before. And in the shadows, Shalara and Dr. Okonkwo worked tirelessly to build a case that would shake the foundations of the galaxy. The evidence Shalara provided was damning. Financial records showed that Council leadership had been stealing resources meant for developing species for over 500 years. Secret communications revealed that the Karathi had been ordered to attack 3 peaceful species in the past century, creating conflicts that justified increased military spending that enriched Council members. Orders existed showing systematic suppression of any voice that questioned the existing power structure. Dr. Okonkwo spent days verifying every document, cross-referencing every claim, making absolutely certain that nothing could be dismissed as forgery or propaganda. The evidence was real. The corruption was deep, and the galaxy deserved to know. But Ambassador Vasquez knew that evidence alone would not be enough. They needed the right moment, the right presentation, the right allies, and they needed to survive what was coming. Admiral Chen coordinated the military preparation with the focus of a man who knew that mistakes would cost lives. Captain Rodriguez and the Defiant were positioned at the front line, exactly where Rodriguez insisted on being despite Chen's protests. The captain had been at New Bethlehem. He had been part of humanity's first victory. He wanted to be there for the second. The human fleet was ready. Every ship had been checked and double-checked. Every weapon was armed. Every crew member knew what was at stake. This would not be like the Karathi fleet disabled and sent home. The Zalthari would not make the same mistakes. They would come prepared for human technology. They would come ready for a real war. On day 59, Elena called a meeting with her core team and several trusted allies from other species. Shalara was there, along with representatives from the Malari, the Trendo, and 3 smaller species that had broken with the Council. They gathered in a secure conference room on Earth, knowing that the next day would determine the future of the galaxy. Elena stood at the head of the table. Tomorrow the Zalthari fleet will jump into human space. Admiral Chen believes we can win the military battle, but it will be costly. Many will die on both sides, but military victory alone will not win this war. We need to win hearts and minds. We need to show the galaxy what the Council really is. She activated a holographic display showing their plan. Dr. Okonkwo and Shalara have compiled undeniable proof of Council corruption. We will broadcast this evidence to every world in the galaxy at the exact moment the battle begins. While the Council is focused on destroying us, we will be destroying their credibility. But we need allies to amplify the message. We need your help. The Trendo ambassador, an ancient being whose skin looked like weathered stone, spoke in a voice like wind through canyons. My people have known about this corruption for centuries. We have been too afraid to speak. We will speak now. We will broadcast your evidence on every Trendo channel. Our reputation for honesty will give your claims weight, Shalara added. The Malari control much of the galaxy's artistic and cultural networks.
We will make sure every poet, every musician, every storyteller knows the truth.
By the time the battle ends, the entire galaxy will be talking about nothing else. The smaller species representatives pledged their support as well. They had less reach, less influence, but they had something just as valuable. They were the species the Council had trampled on for millennia. Their voices would resonate with billions of others who had suffered in silence. Day 60 arrived. In space above New Bethlehem, Captain Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the Defiant watching sensors count down to the moment the Zalthari fleet would arrive. His crew was silent, focused, ready. They all knew what was coming. They all knew what they might have to sacrifice. Rodriguez opened a shipwide channel. All hands, this is the captain. In a few minutes, we will face the largest fleet ever assembled against humanity. They outnumber us. They have more firepower, but they do not have what we have. They do not have the courage to stand up for what is right. They do not have allies who believe in them. They do not have a cause worth dying for. We do. Stay sharp. Stay strong. And remember, we fight not just for humanity, but for everyone who dreams of a better galaxy. Rodriguez out, the sensors screamed. The Zalthari armada appeared in a massive flash of displaced energy. 800 ships, the combined might of dozens of species arrayed in battle formation. At their center flew the High Chancellor's personal flagship, a massive vessel that dwarfed every other ship in the system. The High Chancellor's voice boomed across every communication channel. Humans, you have defied the Council. You have corrupted loyal species. You have brought chaos to galactic order. Surrender now, and we will show mercy. Resist, and we will show you the price of rebellion. Admiral Chen responded from Earth, his voice calm and steady. High Chancellor, you speak of order, but you mean control. You speak of mercy, but you mean subjugation. Humanity rejects both. We will defend ourselves, and we have something to show you. At that moment, broadcasts began across the entire galaxy. Every public channel, every news network, every communication system that could be accessed received the same transmission. Shalara's evidence, compiled and organized by Dr. Okonkwo, presented with irrefutable clarity by Ambassador Vasquez. The galaxy watched as financial records showed stolen resources. They watched as communications revealed manufactured wars. They watched as order after order demonstrated systematic oppression of any species that questioned authority. And they watched as Ambassador Vasquez stood before the camera and spoke with quiet fury. People of the galaxy, this is the truth your leaders did not want you to know. For centuries, the Council has existed not to serve you, but to control you. They have grown rich while your people struggled. They have started wars while calling it peacekeeping. They have crushed hope while promising stability. Today, that ends. Today, you know the truth. What you do with that knowledge is up to you. But know this, you are not alone. Millions of us across dozens of species are standing up right now. Stand with us. Demand better. Demand justice. Demand equality. The Council cannot stop all of us. They can barely stop one species, as they are about to learn. On his flagship, the High Chancellor watched the broadcast with growing horror. This was worse than any military defeat. This destroyed everything. His authority, his legacy, his power. He turned to his military commanders with desperation in his three eyes. Destroy them. Destroy every human ship. Destroy every human world. Show the galaxy what happens to those who defy us. The Armada advanced. The battle began. And it was everything Admiral Chen had feared and more. The Zalthari came prepared. Their ships had been upgraded with new shields designed to counter human weapons. Their tactics were sound. Their numbers were overwhelming. Human ships fell. The UHSF horizon exploded under concentrated fire. The New Dawn lost all power and drifted lifeless. Captain Rodriguez watched good people die, watched ships crewed by friends and colleagues torn apart by enemy weapons. But they did not break. They did not run. And slowly the human advantages began to show. Superior speed allowed them to choose their engagements. Better targeting meant each shot counted more. Coordinated tactics let smaller groups of ships take down larger enemies. And, most importantly, humanity fought with a unity of purpose that the Council fleet lacked. Because even as the battle raged, the galaxy was watching the broadcasts. And ships in the Council fleet were receiving messages from home, from their families, from their people. Messages asking if what they had just learned was true. Messages demanding answers. Messages ordering them to stand down. 3 Zelthari captains refused to continue fighting. Their crews had seen the evidence. They knew now that they were fighting not to protect the galaxy, but to protect corrupt leaders. They powered down weapons and withdrew from the battle. Then 6 more ships followed. Then 20. The High Chancellor screamed orders, threatened execution, promised rewards. But his voice meant nothing now. His authority was gone. The captains who continued fighting did so out of loyalty to their crews or fear of what would happen if they stopped. Not because they believed in the cause. On the Defiant, Rodriguez watched his tactical display shift as more and more enemy ships stopped firing. His vessel was damaged, his shields were failing, and half his crew was injured or dead. But they had held. They had survived long enough for the truth to matter. Then the ancient Trendo Conclave, the oldest and most respected members of the Council, broadcast a message that ended the battle. To all forces, cease fire immediately. The evidence presented by humanity and its allies is verified as authentic. The Council leadership is hereby stripped of authority pending investigation. All military operations are suspended. Any captain who continues firing will be tried for war crimes. This is not a request. This is an order backed by the full weight of Trendo honor. Stand down. The shooting stopped. The weeks following the battle were unlike anything the galaxy had ever experienced. Governments fell. Leaders were arrested. Ancient power structures that had stood for millennia crumbled in days. And from the chaos, something new began to emerge. Captain Rodriguez recovered in a medical facility on Earth, his body healing from injuries sustained when the Defiant took a direct hit during the final moments of the battle. Admiral Chen visited him personally, bringing news that the captain's crew had voted to name him for the highest military honor humanity could award. Rodriguez accepted with quiet grace but asked that the medal be given to his crew instead. Chen smiled and said he would make it happen. The High Chancellor stood trial before a galactic tribunal. The evidence against him was overwhelming. His own people, the Zelthari, disowned him and his co-conspirators. He was sentenced to exile on a remote world, stripped of all titles and authority, left to live out his remaining years with nothing but his regrets. Some said the punishment was too light. Others said it was perfect. For a being who craved power above all else, to live powerless was the ultimate sentence. War leader Kresh faced a different fate. The Karathi Empire held its own investigation and concluded that Kresh had followed orders but shown poor judgment. He was allowed to retire with honor, though he would never command a fleet again. Some humans felt he should have been punished more harshly, but Admiral Chen argued that Kresh had been a soldier doing his duty. The real criminals were those who gave the orders, not those who followed them. The Galactic Council convened for what would be its final session. Representatives from every species gathered, but this time there was no hierarchy, no division between elder races and junior members. Everyone stood on equal ground. The Trendo ambassador, one of the few council members whose reputation survived untarnished, called the meeting to order. My friends, we have witnessed the end of an era. The council as we knew it is dead, killed not by weapons but by its own corruption. Now we must decide what comes next. Do we try to rebuild the old system? Or do we create something new? Ambassador Vasquez stood. She had been offered a seat at the head table, a position of honor and influence. She had declined it, choosing instead to stand with the representatives of smaller species who had never been given voices before. Humanity proposes that we create something entirely new, Elena said. Not a council, but an assembly. Not a hierarchy, but a democracy. Every species has one vote, regardless of how old their civilization is or how many worlds they control. Decisions are made by majority, with protections for minority rights. Leadership rotates every 5 years so no one species can dominate. And most importantly, everything is transparent. No more secret deals. No more hidden agendas. The people of every world get to see exactly what their representatives are doing. The chamber filled with discussion. Some species loved the idea immediately. Others worried about the practical challenges. A few of the older races resisted, uncomfortable with losing the influence they had held for so long. But slowly, through days of debate and negotiation, a consensus formed. Shalara emerged as a powerful voice during these discussions. The young Malari who had risked everything to expose the truth now found herself speaking for millions who wanted change. She proposed amendments to protect cultural heritage while preventing any species from imposing their values on others. She suggested economic systems that would help developing species without creating dependency. She became in many ways the face of the new generation of galactic leadership. After 3 weeks of intense negotiation, the new Galactic Assembly was ratified. 47 species signed the founding charter, with dozens more requesting to join in the following months. The old council chamber was converted into a museum, a reminder of what happened when power went unchecked. A new facility was built, designed with no head table, no positions of superiority, just a circular arrangement where everyone could see everyone else. Humanity was offered the first rotating leadership position. It would have been a moment of triumph, a symbol of how far they had come in just 50 years. Ambassador Vasquez stood before the assembly and politely declined. We are honored by this offer, truly. But humanity did not fight for the right to rule. We fought for the right to be equals. We fought so that every species, no matter how small or new, could have a voice. Giving us the first leadership position would contradict everything we believe. Instead, we propose that the Trendo, whose honor and integrity helped end the corruption, serve as first leadership. After them, let the position rotate to species in order of their joining this new assembly, not their age or power. The applause was deafening. Even species that had fought against humanity in the recent battle stood and showed respect. The Trendo ambassador bowed deeply, accepting the responsibility with visible emotion. Trade agreements were signed. Defensive pacts were formed. Species that had been enemies for centuries began talking about cooperation, and slowly, the galaxy began to heal. Humanity shared its technology freely, asking only for fair compensation and respect in return. Human medical advances saved millions of lives across dozens of species. Human engineering helped rebuild worlds damaged by council-engineered conflicts. Human art and music began appearing in galleries across the galaxy, adding new voices to the great conversation of civilizations. 6 months after the battle, Earth held a celebration. Representatives from across the galaxy attended, walking through streets filled with music and laughter. The event was not a victory parade. It was a festival of new beginnings, of hope, of the future they would build together. Admiral Chen stood on a balcony overlooking the festivities, a glass of wine in his hand. Dr. Okonkwo joined him, and together they watched the crowd below. Humans danced with Malari. Trendu elders shared stories with human children. Karathi soldiers laughed with human veterans, finding common ground in their shared experiences. Was it worth it? Okonkwo asked quietly. All the lives lost, all the sacrifice. Was it worth this? Chen was silent for a long moment. I think about the people we lost every day. The Horizon crew, the New Dawn, all the others. I think about Captain Rodriguez and how close he came to dying. And I wonder if we could have found another way. But then I look at this. He gestured to the celebration below. I see species that hated each other for millennia, sharing meals and making friends. I see young people planning joint missions to explore regions of space no one has visited. I see hope, so yes, it was worth it. But we must never forget the price we paid. Ambassador Vasquez found them a few minutes later. She looked tired but happy, her usual diplomatic mask replaced with genuine emotion. Shalara was with her, the young Malari now serving as her assistant and learning the complexities of interspecies diplomacy. The first assembly session went well, Elena reported. We passed resolutions on trade, defense, and cultural exchange. No one tried to dominate. No one pushed their agenda at the expense of others. It actually worked like it was supposed to. Shalara added, My people are writing songs about this, not just about the battle, but about what came after, about choosing hope over fear, about standing up even when it is hard. Your species has given the galaxy something precious. Not technology, not military strength, but an example. You showed us that change is possible, that the old ways do not have to be forever, that one group willing to say no can inspire millions to say yes to something better. Dr. Okonkwo smiled. That is quite a legacy for a species barely 50 years into space travel. Elena laughed. 50 years. Sometimes I forget how young we are compared to everyone else. We are still learning, still making mistakes, but I suppose that is part of what made this possible. We had not yet learned to accept things as they are. We still believed things could be different. The celebration continued long into the night. When the guests finally departed and Earth fell quiet, Admiral Chen returned to his office. There was work to do, always work. The galaxy was at peace, but peace required constant effort to maintain. Before he sat down, Chen walked to a wall where photos of lost crew members hung. He touched each one gently, remembering their faces, their names, their final moments. To those who sacrificed everything, he whispered, "May we build something worthy of your sacrifice." Ambassador Vasquez returned to her quarters and found a message waiting. It was from a species she had never heard of, living in a distant part of the galaxy that had never been part of the Council. They had heard about the formation of the Galactic Assembly. They wanted to know if they could join. They wanted to be part of something better. Elena smiled as she composed her reply. The answer, she wrote, is yes. Always yes. The galaxy has room for everyone who wants to build rather than destroy, who wants to cooperate rather than dominate, who wants to lift others up rather than push them down. Welcome to the Assembly. We have been waiting for you. In orbit around a distant world, a young officer on a human patrol ship detected something strange on his sensors. Signals from a region of space that had never been charted. Patterns that suggested intelligence, technology, perhaps even civilization. He reported it immediately, and word began spreading through the fleet.